Compact SUVs are the bread and butter of car manufacturers. They sell more quickly than the latest Air Jordans. It's a cutthroat segment of the market, especially amongst luxury brands. But how does the recently updated Acura RDX stack up against the benchmark that is the BMW X3? Well, let's go for a drive and find out. First things first, a little disclosure about this particular BMW X3 that I test drove. It's the hybrid version. In terms of outright power, it's actually closer to the RDX than the less powerful non-hybrid X3 30i. The X3 30e slots in between the gasoline-only 30i and the more powerful M40i. It still has a 4-cylinder engine, but with an electric motor sandwiched in between the engine and the transmission. Total system output is 288 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque. Due to the instant torque of the electric motor, the BMW X3 30e feels quick off the line despite its extra weight from the batteries. It's almost 200 kilograms more at 2,080 kilograms curb weight. It's the same story when overtaking a slower vehicle on a highway. The electric motor provides instant torque and fills the gaps between shifts for an instant boost in power. Under the hood of the Acura RDX is a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. It produces 272 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque. In terms of power, that's more than enough because as soon as you put your foot down, the engine just picks up and you're away. That peak torque figure is reached at a very low 1600 RPMs and is sustained all the way through to 4500 RPMs. However, the drawback is that this is the only engine available on the RDX. There is no hybrid or a more powerful engine option available, unlike in the BMW X3, for example. In terms of fuel economy, it is rated for 9.1 liters per 100 kilometers on a highway and 11.3 liters per 100 kilometers in a city. Thing is though, those numbers are a little bit hard to get, at least for me it was. And it's not just because I have a heavy foot. Like, I was actually trying to get good fuel economy numbers with this car. So far, I'm averaging 11.5 liters per 100 kilometers, and that's almost 50-50 highway city driving. In the BMW X3, fuel economy really depends on what drive mode you're in and the charge of the battery. The battery has 12 kilowatt hours of capacity, which is good enough for around 30 kilometers of pure electric driving range. Once that charge runs out, the X3 automatically switches to the 2-liter engine and it'll return around 8 liters per 100 kilometers on a highway and 11 liters per 100 kilometers in a city. You can make the engine recharge the battery, but fuel economy is going to suffer. On a highway, I noticed that my average went to over 11 liters per 100 kilometers when the engine was recharging the battery. But if you can continuously plug in the X3, then you can go for long periods without needing to refuel. I averaged 6.3 liters per 100 kilometers during my time with the X3. Shifting gears in the Acura RDX is a 10-speed automatic transmission. Who knew that you needed that many gears with such a small engine? Thing is though, it's actually not that bad. Shifts are very smooth in comfort mode and they're a lot quicker when you switch over to Sport Plus. And it's also pretty clever too, because it's not constantly hunting for gears depending on your speed. I mean, right now I'm 7th gear. It's not trying to go into 8th or 9th or even 10th gear. But as soon as I put my foot down a little bit, it finds the right gear and away I go. In terms of handling, the RDX has all-wheel drive, but it's not quite any old-fashioned all-wheel drive system. It's Acura's SH, or Super Handling all-wheel drive system. This system can not only transfer power between the front and rear wheels, but also from side to side. It uses real torque vectoring, not by applying the brakes, to better rotate the SUV when driving around corners. The steering provides good feedback to the driver and changes depending on the drive modes. In normal everyday driving, it is light for easy maneuverability. Switch to sport mode and it becomes heavier to provide a bit more feedback to the driver. Despite the extra heft from the batteries, the BMW X3 30e still retains the sporty handling characteristics that BMWs are known for. It's not going to outpace a sedan per se, but for a family hauler and daily commuter, the X3 30e feels solid around the twisties. The steering weight is more pronounced when in the sport mode, as is the quickness. Although this is a sporty-oriented SUV, it still retains a luxurious and comfortable ride. On highways, it feels stable, while on city streets, it maintains its composure over potholes and cracked pavement. The cabin is spacious, but only in certain dimensions. For example, it has more rear legroom than the BMW X3, but it has less headroom. But where it really outclasses the German rival is in the trunk. The Acura RDX offers 835 liters of cargo volume with the rear seats up, and 1,668 liters with those rear seats folded. It also feels like a solid built interior. During my time with the SUV, I didn't notice any rattles or squeaks coming from the interior trim pieces. I also like how it looks on the inside, especially with the red leather and contrasting black Alcantara running down the center of the seats. My only complaint though is with the overly massive dynamic drive mode selector in the center. When I first got into the RDX, I reached for that knob thinking it was the volume knob for the stereo. Maybe I'm the knob for thinking that. But anyway, it just feels more natural to grab that rather than the actual tiny volume knob further up and above it to the left. Driving the BMW X3 on city streets is not as bad as you may think. The suspension absorbs bumps very well. However, if you do hit a large enough pothole, some of the noise gets translated through the suspension and into the cabin. At higher speeds, the X3 feels heavy and stable when driving on a highway. The passenger space in the X3 30e remains relatively unchanged from the gasoline-only version. However, that means that it still has the least front and rear legroom when compared to the Acura RDX and even other rivals like the Mercedes GLC and Volvo XC60. Adults over 6 feet will have enough space in the front seats, but the rear seats can be a bit tight if you're as tall as myself at 6'4". When it comes to cargo, the floor of the trunk had to be raised to accommodate the batteries. As a result, the X3 30e has 770 liters of cargo behind the second row and 1,682 liters of cargo with the second row folded. The standard BMW X3 30e comes equipped with heated seats, heated steering wheel, LED headlights, parking sensors, backup camera, and auto-dimming mirrors to name a few. However, this demo vehicle is not a base model. It has a few extra packages on it, such as the M Sport and Premium Enhanced packages. These add features like upgraded brakes, 20-inch wheels, M aerodynamics, panoramic sunroof, rear sunshades, head-up display, heated rear seats, and ambient lighting. This demo vehicle also had surround view cameras and wireless phone charging as standalone options. This being a mid-level trim of the RDX, it comes with quite a few more features than an equivalently priced German rival. This A-Spec comes equipped with ventilated front seats, adaptive cruise control, panoramic sunroof, Android Auto and Apple CarPlay connectivity, Wi-Fi, and blind spot sensors, just to name a few. These are of course in addition to the features available on the lower trims of the RDX. As for the actual gadgets themselves, they all work well. The infotainment system though still takes some getting used to. The 10.2-inch infotainment screen is not a touchscreen and instead has to be controlled by the touchpad on the center console. Thing is, this touchpad is a little bit different than any other. Acura calls it a true touchpad interface, which means that your touch on the pad correlates to that exact position on the screen. So if you touch the top right corner of the pad, the top right item of the screen is highlighted. There is no need to swipe to select between menu items like every other touchpad out there. And that's what makes this one feel so awkward. Your brain is not used to it. Worse yet is trying to use Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the touchpad. These systems were designed to work with a touchscreen rather than a touchpad or even a scroll wheel. So back to the original question. How well does the Acura RDX stack up against the BMW X3, and should you consider it over the German rival? Honestly, I think that you should, because this A-Spec costs just over $50,000 Canadian, and that's actually the same starting price as the BMW X3. But at that price point, the X3 is just a base model, so it doesn't really have that many options, whereas this A-Spec is more of a mid-level trim, so it does have quite a few features for your money. If you want to pay less for an RDX, there are a couple more trim levels below this one, and if you want an RDX with more features, there's a couple more trim levels above it as well. But that doesn't mean that the BMW X3 is a bad SUV. Sure, it is quite a bit more expensive and it'll cost you more in maintenance, but it has more powertrain options than the RDX, it still drives like a BMW should, and BMW is actually moving up in the Consumer Reports reliability studies, with the brand outscoring Acura for the last year. So both have their own pros and cons, but at the end of the day, I'd personally still take the Acura RDX just because it offers more value for my money. If you want to know more about either SUV, I wrote more detailed reviews of them over on my website. You can find the links in the video description. And as always, I will see you in the next car or truck or most likely another SUV. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.